much, Mr. Speaker, sir, for yielding to me again. Nnena Ukeje, member representing Bandit Federal Constituency. Mr. Speaker, sir, I'm from Apiafi State. And Mr. Speaker, as you have earlier pointed out, I hope that the Chief Whip will not interrupt me as I make my presentations. Thank you very much. Mr. Speaker, sir, again, today, this House of Representatives sits down to deliberate again mass murder in our country. Mr. Speaker, the Northeast is besieged by terrorism and killings in the Northeast. Last week, it was the North Central. Today, it is the Northwest. Mr. Speaker, the brazen banditry, and of course, when we listen to the stories that come out of these areas, we start to realize that it is getting more and more scary, it is escalating, and it seems as if we're throwing up our arms and nothing that we can do.
Silence, please. Silence. Honorable Samson, please. Samson Aku, take your seat.
Mr. Speaker, if the Punch newspapers is to be believed, they quoted Mr. President as saying, "Be patient, the security chiefs are racking their brains." Now, Mr. Speaker, sir, my concern is that week in, week out, we come here, 79 motions as stated by Honorable Dasuki. And yet, Mr. Speaker, sir, there seems to be no hope in sight. The bandits are getting more brazen. They're informing us, non-state actors, are informing the country that they're on their way, and the country sits by and watches them carry out their evil exploits. There's nothing preemptive, and there's no answers after they've done what they do. Boko Haram held our country siege for 9 years. Yesterday, someone made the comparison that the civil war lasted 3 years. Boko Haram has lasted 9 years. It has moved from the Northeast, even though the Northeast, and they say that they're technically defeated. 6 suicide bombers in one day, a world record in Maiduguri, only last month. So we can't say. We can say that our gallant men and women of the Nigerian Armed Forces are making strides, but we cannot say that we have stopped Boko Haram in its tracks. The North Central, Mr. Speaker, only last week, there was an orgy. 200 people died. Yesterday, it was Taraba. Sokoto, Taraba was different. In the North Central, there was Taraba. In the Northwest, there was Sokoto. According to Honorable Shagari, they come in with their AK-47s. Mr. Speaker, our country is at war. Our country is at war, Mr. Speaker. Our country is being invaded by people we do not know. And Mr. Speaker, it means that as Parliament, we should start to realize that it is business unusual. Last week we spoke about it and said social media. We spoke about it and said we needed to be responsible. We said we needed to be responsive. Mr. Speaker, the truth of the matter is that if we don't want to call it what it is, then we're lying. This is a Sudan situation. One half of our country is at war. From the center down, there's relative peace and there's symbolism of governance. This is Sudan. What are we doing? What do we want to do? Mr. Speaker, we can't continue to sit down here and pretend. We can't continue to say the security, we don't have enough security, and come up with all sorts of flimsy excuses as if it's skirmishes. Mr. Speaker, this country, one half of our country is ungovernable. It's getting ungovernable. So as Parliament, Mr. Speaker, sir, the truth of the matter is that motions, 1 minute silence, pandering to this problem is not going to help us. Let us start to tell ourselves the truth, Mr. Speaker, sir. We are at war. We've been invaded. And we must, as a country, come to the realization, Mr. Speaker, I would like to give you the charge that you go back to Mr. President and tell him that we believe we're at war. That we must start to engage what governments do when they're at war. And whatever it is, Mr. Speaker, sir, I respectfully urge that you will come back to us with something that gives me more succor than be patient. That be patient. The security agents are racking their brains. Thank you.
Say that it is not about any political parties. It is simply about democracy. And what makes me rather scared is that it seems that democracy is slowly being eroded. What do we tell the youth of this country? That we're asking to get their PVCs before the 17th of August. How do we ensure their safety? How do we tell them that yes, they can go and exercise their right to vote without being tear gassed, without being beaten? When you hear of these sporadic shootings, we've heard severally how stray bullets have killed people. The very people that are supposed to be protecting us are the very people that we are now scared of. The international community are looking at us. They're watching very closely. Just the other day, the British ambassador also made mention of the elections in Ekiti and how it's important to have a democratic, free and fair election. Right now, we look like a bunch of barbarians. Why should it be that a peaceful rally and political meeting should end up in such a manner where even a governor of a state is tear-gassed, beaten up and manhandled? A governor with all the security apparatus at his disposal. So what happens to the average man that goes and says they want to cast their vote? This is clearly a reflection of what is going to take place in 2019. I believe we need to change this change. We need to change what is taking place that is completely something that should not and should never be condoned. I think every member of this House, regardless of party, should support this motion. The security forces should not be used as a tool to oppress the people or as a political instrument. Neutrality is important in protecting the lives of citizens and properties. Thank you so very much, Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues.
Honorable MT.
With my contributions, I just wanted to. The contributions made so
please,
far.
members, take your seats.
I'd like to support the contributions made so far by my colleagues, and I want to add that apart from the fact that we've raised over 79 motions in this House in respect of security issues in various parts of the country, we have also passed votes of no confidence on certain security heads in these chambers. And we have also advised the government of the day on the need to change most of the security chiefs we have if they are not effective. Unfortunately, most of our resolutions here are not being implemented, are not being affected. One of our colleagues, Honorable Mogono, in making his contribution, has actually advised that it is important that we use civilian JTF. It shows us clearly that there is a failure of intelligence gathering in the country. So the security agencies have actually failed in their duties in intelligence gathering. We need to
For us to be now relying on civilian JTF to keep peace in Nigeria, it means that we really do have a problem that is really, really critical. Honorable Shagari, in moving his motion, has actually alluded that these bandits are known.
Please, members, please, silence, please.
Residing in the forest near some community in their state. He actually alluded that these bandits actually come out in the daytime with their AK-47 to bring their girlfriends to make their hair in salons. He said so. When the motion on the Plateau killing came up, the same issues were raised that the bandits who the herdsmen who attacked Plateau live by the mountains around Plateau State. So it's not as if these people are not known, they are known. But what it tells us is that there is no capacity to deal with the issue. We don't see how a nation can function when the military doesn't have the capacity to deal with security issues. So what I would like to say is, in order not to take too much of our time, is I am happy that the National Assembly has taken a major decision to pass to do an amendment of the Constitution to bring state police. And I think we should work on that bill as fast as possible. Let us have state police in every state, because rather than relying on civilian JTF, it is better for us to have police by each state. And I'm sure that we may just be able to solve this problem. Because when this president was sworn in, the first thing he did was to ask the army chief to relocate to the northeast. So if the army chief was supposed to have relocated to the northeast, and we are still having all these challenges in the north, then it means that we have failed as a nation. The security agencies have failed, and since the president is not agreeing to change any of the security leaders, neither is he doing anything about the ones we pass votes of no confidence on, then the best thing for us to do is go on and get state police and let every state take care of their security. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.